Hi there. This week, the UK Chancellor Rishi Sunak has announced a new job support package and new help for businesses, which could cost the Treasury, or in effect the taxpayer, you and I, £22 billion. What do you think of this? Earlier this week, Rishi promised grants of up to £2,100 a month to companies that fall under Tier 2 restrictions, which is different parts of the country. And these are businesses that are forced to close but are struggling to be commercially viable. So I expect there will be hospitality businesses that are forced to close. And as many as 150,000 businesses could qualify for the payments, which immediately will cost the Treasury 1.2 billion. And that this new job support scheme actually replaces the furlough scheme that we've heard about and we've been running, and it will be more generous, and it will extend to firms that are legally allowed to open, and it will be more generous, and employers will only have to pay staff 5% of staff wages, and the minimum threshold of hours will be reduced to one day. It's estimated that 2 million people could enrol in the scheme, and that will cost the Treasury 6 billion. And he also announced grants for self-employed workers up to 40% of their average profits, up to a maximum of £3,750 a month, which could cost the Treasury another 3 billion. And this comes at a time when government borrowing is running at £1 billion a day. £1 billion a day. That's borrowed money. That means that the Treasury haven't got enough money to pay for all these things. They're borrowing £1 billion a day. If you think of what £1 billion is, it's £1,000 million. It's like 1,000 millionaires. It's the sort of money that if you had that money, if you're a billionaire, you could live on that for the rest of your life, and your generations down the line could live on that money forever. And this is the amount of money that's just been thrown around at £1 billion a day. Borrowed, that means it's got to be paid back by taxpayers in the future, and that could run like the war debt from the Second World War was not paid off for 50 or 60 years. I think it was in the 1980s it eventually got paid off, but it was incredible, how long that took to repay, and it's frightening to think of the interest that has been paid on all this borrowing. So what is it going to do for the economy? Well, it does in effect pump more money into the economy, which could fuel booms and it already is fueling a boom in property prices, but eventually it will trickle down into the economy, and presumably prices of maybe properties will go up. Shares are up at the moment, and it could mean that people have a bit more money to spend. Although some businesses do sort of still fall through the net, it's certainly a lot of money to be pumping into the economy. And when I say tier 2, the country is now split into various 3 tiers. This is in England. Tier 1, Tier 2, which is medium risk. Tier 3 is very high risk, and some parts of the country like Manchester and parts of Yorkshire are in this high risk area, and that will mean lockdown restrictions in those areas. London comes under that as well. It means you can't mix households, you can't gather outside more than 6 people. So it does affect businesses, and many businesses are forced to close. Scotland and Northern Ireland and Wales have got their own scheme, and Wales are bringing in a proper lockdown, as will Scotland be soon. Scotland has got 5 tiers, so it's very confusing at the moment depending on where you are. And if you live on the borders of Scotland or Wales, then you could be stepping into one area and then into another area, just going across the borders. I say borders, they're not borders with passport controls and that sort of thing. There's just a line or a river or something like that, a natural border, but there's no restriction of movement between the various countries. But in the UK, some of the powers have been devolved to governments of Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland. So to a certain extent, they can do their own thing with all these lockdown restrictions. So in the normal economy, I was out today, businesses are open, cafes, restaurants are open, they seem quite busy. Some businesses are not doing themselves any favours because they're not open. Or I was in one place the other day and they said, well, the kitchen's closed. So you couldn't even get a cheese sandwich, because they said the kitchen was closed. And this is at lunchtime. And yet other places in the same high street were open. So some businesses are not really doing themselves any favours. They're not opening the right hours. They're not supplying enough on the menu. Maybe there's a reason for that. But don't be one of those businesses that just give up during the lockdown. Look at it as a time to maybe increase your business because other people are just closing early or not even bothering to open at all. So that's what's happening in the UK. We're hoping that the country won't go into another lockdown, although the number of cases of coronaviruses are rising every day. Every time we switch on the news, there's more cases coming on and more people going into hospital. But I've also seen an announcement that furlough fraudsters, this is the furlough scheme which allowed people to stay at home and employers were paid up to 80% of their salary. Furlough fraudsters may have stolen £3 billion from the Treasury. This is by setting up fake companies and doing fake claims. And this will all come out later. But there's also been, I think, a lot of dodgy bounce back loans by companies which will eventually not pay these loans back. And the government or the taxpayer, you and I, are guaranteeing these loans if they fail. So these schemes, I always said that were open to fraudulent claims, and that is exactly what's happening according to the National Audit Office. So there you go. That's the news this week. Life still goes on. We've just got to get on with it here, and just carry on and stay safe when you're out there, so that you don't catch anything. But I'm certainly one person who will wear a mask wherever I go. But as I say, I don't think many people are bothering with this thing. What we are seeing around London is the closure of roads to cars. We're seeing more bike lanes being suddenly put in on main routes, parking spaces disappearing, and roads being narrowed by doubling the size of bus lanes and then putting big bike lanes in. To me, it's taken away. I mean, the cars are the people who pay for the roads through their road fund licence and the duty they pay on petrol and general taxation. Cyclists don't pay this. They don't pay anything. They don't even have a licence to ride on the road. Anybody can get on the bike and ride on the road, but car drivers pay through the nose to be on the road, and we're not there for nothing. It's all right saying we'll close the roads and make little cafe areas and sit outside and all this sort of stuff, but people need to get to places, people need to get to the shops, people need to do things in their cars. We're certainly not riding around London for the joyriding pleasure of driving, because it's not pleasurable. But councils now seem to have used emergency coronavirus type powers to suddenly say, right, we're going to put these new restrictions on traffic and roads. And I think it's crazy. And we should really be like the French and do something about this, because it is bringing London to a standstill. So there you go. That's my little rant of the day. Thanks very much for listening. Thanks a lot for tuning in on Facebook and on my YouTube channel. Please click the like button if you can. It's always great to hear from you. And I will speak to you again. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.